So what is the cost of avoiding a difficult conversation? We tend to think that the hard part is actually having the conversation. I'm starting to think that the bigger danger is what happens when we don't have that conversation, at least in my experience. Avoidance, it gives us the relief. The relief right now. We don't have to feel uncomfortable. We don't have to make somebody uncomfortable. We don't have to hear something painful. We don't have to figure out what to do next. You have that difficult conversation, you get information, then you got to do something with it.
Welcome to All Can, No Can't, the podcast where we toss out excuses, face our fears, and reclaim control. I'm Jeff Luther, your guide to mastering the chaos and turning obstacles into opportunities. Whether you're an entrepreneur navigating the ups and the downs of building a successful business, or someone ready to rewrite the rules of your life, this is your space to grow, to push boundaries, and to embrace doing the hard shit that leads to greatness. Together, we'll explore stories of resilience, strategies for overcoming, and the mindset shifts that let you build a life on your terms. I use my experience with a life-altering diagnosis to help you find the can in every can't. So buckle up, because it's time to stop living in can't and start thriving in all can. You choose.
Welcome back to All Can, No Can't. I'm your host, Jeff Luther, and this is the podcast where we turn obstacles into opportunities. Another solo episode for you today. I've been doing a lot of those lately. But what prompted this today is I was having a conversation with someone that I work with, and he has a difficult conversation to have with a parent and is avoiding it. And so I shared an experience with him about a time that I avoided that difficult conversation and what it cost me. So I thought it'd be good. I did a LinkedIn newsletter about it. I did a blog post on my blog about it, and then a quick little LinkedIn post about it as well. And I thought it would be a good idea to do a podcast on it. Hopefully someone can avoid the pain that I went through by my experience. So what is the cost of avoiding a difficult conversation? We tend to think that the hard part is actually having the conversation. I'm starting to think that the bigger danger is what happens when we don't have that conversation, at least in my experience. Avoidance, it gives us the relief. The relief right now. We don't have to feel uncomfortable. We don't have to make somebody uncomfortable. We don't have to hear something painful. We don't have to figure out what to do next. You have that difficult conversation, you get information, then you got to do something with it. But that relief, it can come at a cost for sure. And sometimes the reason that we tell ourselves we're protecting, or the person we tell ourselves that we're protecting, isn't really the person that we're protecting at all. I learned this in a pretty painful way with my son, Cash. Cash witnessed my sudden cardiac arrest, or sudden cardiac death. It was 8 minutes, no pulse, no breath. I was shocked with an AED 3 times. And the first 2 times when you're shocked, it gives that audible flatline. So he heard that. It was traumatic. People told me about his reaction during it. Obviously, I was out. But I would ask him, this went on for months. You okay? Yep. Great. Need to talk to anybody? Nope. Good. And that was our conversation about it. And perfect. Conversation was over. Except what else is a 17-year-old teenage boy going to say? Oh, no, I have feelings, and my feelings are this. I mean, I knew what answer I was going to get when I asked him, right? I knew the answer was going to be, you okay? Yep. I knew that's what the answer would be. That made that was a safe question for me. I could tell myself that I checked on him. I could tell myself that I was asking, but I wasn't digging into anything that was actually painful. And then, Cash would watch me. I'd gotten, after that incident, I'd gotten a watch that had kept my heart rate on it. And he would see me look at it and he'd say, are you okay? And I'd say, yep. And that was it. We were just 2 people that love each other a ton and trying to protect each other by saying absolutely nothing. At the time, I was trying to figure out my own healing, how I was going to do that. What had happened to me? What did it mean for my future? What could my body do? Could I ever trust it again? Who was I? Who was I now? That, my ego and my identity was tied up in all of that. And I didn't want to discover that Cash had his own road to healing. I didn't even know what my road was going to be. but I didn't want to learn that he had his process he had to go through too. And I thought in somewhere in my mind, I tried to rationalize, saying, "Oh no, if something's really wrong, he'll tell me." He was 17. Hell, I didn't even know what I needed. How was he supposed to? So I was avoiding all of that, and really, I did not want to hear that my son was broken, and I didn't have the tools to fix him. That's what I was avoiding. So this went on for months. You good? Yep, great. And then months later, he was at a wrestling meet, and he was wrestling, and he and the kid he was wrestling got their arms tangled up somehow, and they ended up falling, and that kid fell on his arm, and he got hyperextended his elbow. Like, it went back, his wrist was touching his shoulder. It was all the way back. It was horrific. It was a horrible break. And of course, the crowd reacted, and Cash completely lost it. He screamed. He thought it was his fault. He was banging his head on the wrestling mat. I had to actually come out of the stands and grab him and try to get him under control. And all I remember, I was holding him. It was my chest to his back, and I was holding him, trying to get him to calm down. He finally calmed down. I turned him around, and he just looked straight through me. His eyes went straight through my eyes, and he didn't see a thing. And I finally shook him, and I said, "Cash, he's going to be okay." And nothing. I grabbed him. "Cash, do you trust me?" And he finally looked at me, and he just said, "Dad, I cannot hear the sirens." And that's what it was. That's what he freaked out about. He knew that an injury like that was going to be associated with sirens coming. And later that day, I was like, "So the sirens, they have an effect on you?" And he said, "Yeah, they kind of do." I said, "Was that from the day that happened to me at the gym?" And he said, "Yeah, I think so." And then I knew I had to create some safe space for him. We had to connect. I had to ask those difficult questions. But more importantly, it wasn't about me asking the questions. I had to get the information. I had to get the information from him. I had to give him a safe place to tell it. So I said, "Well, what happened? What happened that day? Tell me what you remember." And then he walked me through it. It's like, oh, wow. And
as you know, I've been coaching for a little over a year now, and my coach just laid something pretty heavy on me. They've challenged me to have 50 powerful coaching conversations booked within the next 30 days. So if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, maybe successful but unfulfilled, or you just need to talk something through with someone that will listen, then I would love to have that conversation with you. This is not a tactic. There's no sales pitch. It's just one powerful conversation. This is complimentary to you. So if you want in, send me a message and I'll send you the link. I got you.
Then what happened? And it's a lot of detail, but it was basically like, "Tell me what happens when they shock you with that thing." And he said, "Oh, you hear it. It's a whistling sound. And then it tells you that there's going to initiate shock to back up or something like that." I was like, "Oh, wow." And then when it shocks you, what happens? He said, "You really come up off the ground." It's like, "Oh my gosh." And then what happened? And that's when he said, "Well, then they make that sound like on the movies when people are dead and everybody thought you were dead." And as he started to say it, you could tell like it was such a huge relief. And then, he finally got his story out, and he said and I didn't know who to tell. Every time I hear sirens, every time I hear an ambulance, a fire truck, I don't know what to do. And it always in the back of my mind makes me wonder if they're coming for you. And then that's when we agreed that we would find someone for him to talk to and somebody to get help. I didn't know what to ask, and it wasn't because I didn't love him or because I didn't care. I just had never really asked, "Hey, dude, are you okay? Is there anything you're carrying? Is there anything heavy?" Just asking you, "Are you okay?" is not the same thing as creating a safe place for someone to give you a real answer. The painful realization that I came to is I thought that I was protecting him keeping it buried. If you ask that difficult question, then he's got to relive it all and tell it all, when in fact it ended up being pretty healthy for him. But I thought I was protecting him, and really I was just protecting myself. I didn't want to hear my son was hurting. I didn't know how to fix him. I thought that asking the question meant that I needed to know what to do with the answer, and it does not. When you ask the question thinking that the answer is gonna make you have to solve it, that is not it. Asking the question and getting that information that you're scared to get is a blessing. Then you know how to help that person. You know what they're carrying. My job wasn't to fix Cash. My job was just to connect with him, just to give him an outlet, give him a safe place to tell his story, ask deeper questions. Shut up and listen. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes. But when we finally talked about what he had experienced, then we were able to decide together. And this is not only this isn't only a parenting problem. We do it with employees. We do it with our spouses. We do it with our partners. We do it with our friends, people that we care deeply about. Hey, you good? Yep, good. Spouse? Hey, we're good, aren't we? Yep, good. Hey, you doing okay? All those surface level questions. And sometimes the answer really is yes. But sometimes we know something's off. And if we accept the easy answer anyway, then we're doing them and us a disservice. Here's a question I think that's worth remembering. Do I believe their answer, or am I relieved by their answer? If I'm relieved, then why? Why does that answer relieve me? Is it because now I don't have to go any deeper? We tell ourselves sometimes, oh, this is not the right time, or I don't want to upset them. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. I need to give them space. They'll talk in their time, or I don't want to make things worse. Like for me, I didn't want Cash to have to relive that. Maybe we're afraid of what they're going to tell us. And that was a lot for me too. I didn't want to hear what he was going to tell me. Avoidance does not make the problem disappear. It just delays the price we're going to pay for that problem. And eventually someone does pay it. So here's the challenge. This is what I will challenge you. Think about one conversation. Not every screwed up relationship in your life. I'm not going to do that to you. I wouldn't do that to me. But one conversation. Who is it with? What conversation do you know needs to happen now? What conversation do you need to have with someone? What person do you need to give that space to? What person needs an ear? Who needs for you to be a good listener right now? What questions are you avoiding? And more importantly, what are you afraid that they might say? Then you ask yourself, am I protecting them, or am I protecting myself? You don't have to walk into the conversation with a solution. That makes it even that much more difficult. You don't even have to know what happens next. Sometimes the first step is simply getting the truth out into the room. Or the first step is just letting them know that you care. So Cash did not need me to have the perfect answer. And I didn't. He didn't need another, "Are you okay?" He needed a dad who was willing to hear what was actually going on, what he was really carrying. And eventually I became willing to have that conversation. I wish I'd gotten there sooner. I do. So take this from my experience. What is avoiding that conversation already costing you? What has it already cost you? What does it cost them? If you have a conversation, decision, relationship, situation, something that you know you need to face, but you keep finding really good reasons not to, this is exactly the kind of thing I work through people with coaching. I offer at any time complimentary clarity conferences where we can spend a little over an hour having a really powerful conversation, figuring out what's actually keeping you stuck, what you're avoiding, and what the next step might look like. You can go to jeffluther.com and book that at any time. And if you know someone that needs to hear this, pass it on. And if you want to leave a message about that difficult conversation, I would love to read it. or a conversation you might be avoiding, or a conversation you avoided in the past and what it could have cost you and how you fixed it. So until next time, don't avoid the conversation because you don't know how it ends. You only need enough courage just to start it. I'm Jeff Luther. This is All Can, No Can't, and I absolutely cannot wait until I get to see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to All Can, No Can't. If today's episode resonated with you, remember it's not about the chaos you face. It's about how you choose to take back control. It's about finding that one small can in the can't you're given and grinding it down. Find your angle, carve your place out in the world, and get the fucking win. Do that by finding what you can do and not listening to what you can't. You choose. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your support helps me reach more people that are ready to embrace the all-can mindset. And it lets them know there's someone that's willing to walk with them no matter how dark the path gets. You can find me on Insta at JDLuther 2.0 and allcan_no-can't. This is where I share more tips, stories, inspiration to help fuel your journey. And until next time, keep pushing boundaries, breaking limits, proving to yourself that anything is possible, even when you're told it isn't. Remember, life's not about can't. It's all can. Go prove them wrong.